With remote selling, we need to be thoughtful and highly disciplined about what we do before, during, and after meetings. We need to be conversational. We need to be curious. We need to be professional in how we are following up. We need to be providing information before, during, and after meetings. And we need to be listening to what our buyers need. Why? So we can help them make decisions faster. We can help us close deals faster. And ultimately, we'll build better relationships because we're engaging with our buyers in a way that's human. This is why I love the choreography of virtual meetings and really being thoughtful about how we engage our champions, our executive sponsors, and decision teams when they're trying to make a decision with something that is so critical to the success of their business. Let me walk you through the framework, the choreography of how to run virtual stakeholder meetings. So the before, prep matters. We want to make sure that you're prepping your team. Selling is a team sport. Want to ensure that everyone that you're bringing to the table is briefed on who you're meeting, why you're meeting, what are some of their priorities, and what are some of the outcomes that you're hoping to accomplish in the meeting. Bring your team together ahead of time. Have a brief call, send briefing documents. Prep matters, and especially now when we're virtual and you don't have the luxury of meeting in person before the meeting starts. Folks are bouncing from meeting to meeting to meeting. You got to make sure you're leaving time for that prep call ahead of time. So critical. You also want to prep your champion, the decision team, and the exec sponsors on what we're going to cover in the meeting. So send the materials ahead of time. It's a great best practice. I love doing it. Send folks a deck. Send folks some demo vignettes. Whatever you're doing and whatever you're going to share, it's okay to send it ahead of time. Why? Because you're going to ultimately be able to feed them information so they can consume it. And then when you meet in person, they'll have questions about what you shared. You have a more engaging, productive conversation. That's what this is about. You're not pitching. You're trying to have a conversation to better understand what they're trying to accomplish. So that's why prep matters. With prep, we want to ensure that we're providing very clear, succinct agendas. These agendas, they need to show up in the calendar invites. They should be sent out in the meeting confirmations to all the folks that are attending the meeting, and we should also be sending it out night before, morning of. Confirm, reconfirm over and over. It's better to over communicate. The last thing you want to do is show up to a meeting and folks are wondering, why are we meeting? You know, these are 30-minute meetings. You don't have a lot of time. You should be able to show up to a meeting and just do quick intros and then move into the agenda confirmation, and then you're moving into the meat of the meeting, right? We're talking about remote selling, and remote selling is about shortening sales cycles because now we can do less meetings in faster time and get to decisions faster, right? But it's up to you to ensure that you've got alignment with the champion and the exec sponsor and everyone showing up on the decision team with what they want to accomplish. That's why an agenda is critical. I love agendas. Still not sure why many meeting calendars out there are missing agendas, but hey, this is why we're doing the training. So now let's move into kind of how do we engage during a meeting, right? So when we're in a meeting kicks off and you're reconfirming the agenda. You know, you've done some intros. Hopefully folks have already connected on LinkedIn ahead of time. And once you have alignment around the agenda, then just think about it. Let's take a 30-minute meeting, for example. In a 30-minute meeting, if you got 5 minutes of time for intros and agenda confirmation and folks are clicking in, then you've got 15, 20 minutes max of actual time that you're going to go through the core topics that we're going to talk about that are on the agenda. And you're going to use that time to have a conversation. If you're spending 20 minutes and you're just pitching, it's not great. You should be spending a couple minutes going through a topic, pausing, asking a question, and you should be having this. That should be the flow. That should be the energy of the meeting. And then remember, it's a 30-minute meeting, and I want to ensure that you're leaving time at the end for recapping what you discussed along with next steps. So that's kind of the architecture. It's the choreography of the 30-minute meeting. And when you're going through the slides, I want to remind you, you're not pitching, you're having a conversation. You should be planting questions on the slides. You should be, every 2 to 3 minutes of your demonstration, you should be pausing and asking people what they think. Everyone's remote. They may be multitasking. So you want to pull them in. It's up to you to engage the folks that you're in a meeting with in a conversation. You can use chats, you can use polls, you can use a whole bunch of ways to do it. But the most effective thing is to pause and to ask an open-ended layering question. I want you to ask a quantification question, right? So being curious is a really important skill in effectively running remote meetings. So critical that you're curious, so critical that your team is all embracing curiosity, and it's so critical that you're asking questions and the right questions, at the right times during the meeting. Why? So you can get your champions and exec sponsors and influencers and decision makers, you can get them to share what they're thinking so they can ultimately make decisions, and you can make a joint decision whether this is a good opportunity for both of you to pursue. And so now let's talk about, we're in the meeting, we're still talking about during, now let's talk about the last, 5-10 minutes, right? It's up to you to do a recap, but you may not get to all your slides, you may not get to all your demo, that's okay. If your customers or buyers have spoken the whole time, amazing, right? You want to ensure that your talk time is in favor of them speaking more than you. So critical. And so you, as the sales professional or the account manager, at the end, you're doing a recap and you're leaving time for next steps discussion. So you're recapping what you heard. This is what we discussed. This is your current situation. Here are some of the issues we talked about. Here are some of the impacts. Here's some of the benefits. Here's, a way that we could collaborate in the future. Here's what a solution may start looking like. And you may get to all that, you may not, but you got to recap professionally. You've got active listening. You've been taking notes. Amazing. And then you want to ensure, get their feedback, verify, validate what you just shared. Yes, we're on message. Great. So now that we've talked, we've had this meeting, what are some next steps? Let them talk. Let them suggest to you what some next steps are. So critical, right? So we've talked about the before, talked about some tips to help you execute your meetings more effectively in an engaging manner. And now let's talk about after, right? So that recap that you shared, where you did a stand and deliver, where you shared what you heard. I love that. You're going to turn that into a reply in an email. You're going to create a mutual plan. You're going to create a mutual plan email recap where you're going to share, here's what we heard. Here's your current situation. Here are some of your challenges. Here are some of your problems. Here are some of the next steps. And you're going to send that to them. When? You're going to send it to them same day or within 24 hours. You got to be super disciplined about that. Same day or 24 hours later. Why? You're driving momentum. You want to turn your meetings into momentum. That's what this is all about. So the choreography of the meeting is such that you got to manage the before, the during, and the after. You got to be disciplined about it. You got to do it in a way that is thoughtful and curious and authentic, and that you're engaging your prospects so they can share with you what they're thinking, and you can make decisions whether you should pursue an opportunity to collaborate and work together and solve problems together. That's the choreography of virtual stakeholder meetings.